in a good book. The Board Gáis Energy Book Club.
Now, the Board Gáis Energy Irish Book Award celebrates the very best in Irish writing, and this year Ireland AM is continuing its support of the Crime Fiction Book of the Year category.
This morning we are joined by crime author Jane Casey, whose book The Kill has been nominated. Jane, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Before we get into the book, it was interesting, we were just having a chat about, we were saying how much Aidan loves crime books, and he really is a crime aficionado, and I was saying my mother adores them, and she loves them the grittier they are and the more realistic they are. And you write in that way, you write incredibly well in that way. But you were saying you yourself are a bit wimpy, you can't handle violence in other books.
No, I'm massively squeamish about it. And I think because I'm writing crime, I kind of think that's a good thing, because I don't take it for granted, and I know I'm kind of writing about things that actually happen to real people. So I try not to be too, I don't know, graphic or take it too lightly. You know, it's really serious stuff.
You have been kind of applauded for your realism.
Oh, well, I hope so. My husband is a criminal barrister, and he prosecutes all the time, and he just gives me so much background information and stories and anecdotes and things, and so everything is always based in fact. Like, I always try and write books that could happen, not necessarily things that have happened, but things that it would be possible.
That's a handy little setup.
But Jane, you know the old cliche.
Yeah, very useful. You can just ring him and go.
You know the old cliche, truth is stranger than fiction. The things that human beings can do to each other, you couldn't dream up, and if you did, people would say, "Oh God, you can't put that in a book." Or that's
absolutely. You know. People just wouldn't believe some of the things that happen. I mean, they would think that I was being really far fetched, and actually, you almost have to tone it down for fiction.
Really,
sometimes
truth is too much. You can't handle the truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Jane, there's a couple of issues with this book. You had a couple of problems. I read somewhere somebody said that one of the worst things you can do to a creative artist is actually give them a lot of success, because then they get really insecure and they start thinking about it and analysing it and go, "How did I do that? And how can I do it again?" So your last book, you got rave reviews about it, a lot of very kind things said about it. So you thought, well, hey, that's lovely. Now, B, what am I going to do? How do I follow that? You also had you had to come up with a plot and an end for it. But there was another subplot which has been going for about 3 or 4 books now, anyway, which you also had to resolve.
That's absolutely right. I had the two. When I sat down to start writing it, I probably, even though it was, I think it was my 7th book that I was writing, I actually had more nerves about starting this book than any of the other ones, purely because I knew that people were waiting for it, and that I kept getting messages from people on Twitter and on Facebook saying, "When is the next book coming out? Are you writing it at the moment? Come on, hurry up, we want to see what happens
The weight
next."
of expectation, quite literally,
yeah. And I think, you know, it's lovely, but you also suddenly realise, if I get this wrong, people are going to be really disappointed, and I found that quite difficult. And then I had set something up sort of 4 books ago, and that it was playing out in this one, and I thought, if it doesn't have the impact that I want it to have, then it's just going to fall really flat.
So that's 2 kind of twists or full stops that you had to put into it. Now, most authors have a problem coming up with one decent one per book. You had to do 2 of them.
But I love that about series fiction, because you can put something in there. I think of them as being a bit like unexploded bombs. They're there, they're under the surface. One of these days someone is going to trip over one of them and it'll all blow up in their faces. And as an author, that's really nice to know.
Well, fans of series fiction love that as well too, because it means that, because they get involved, so involved, and they sometimes wonder whether, has this been churned out for me, or is the person who's writing this as invested in it as I am?
Well, you know, you have to be, like, I'm still so excited to come back to the characters and to get to revisit them and put them in new situations and see what happens. I had somebody on Twitter last night said, they were talking about the books to somebody else, and they said, "And I really want to marry Maeve Kerrigan."
Did that make you proud?
It did.
Yes,
a little bit edgy,
a little bit concerned
maybe
for
on
them.
her behalf.
Tell us what going on.
Yeah, no, sorry. One of the things I noticed that you talked about in interviews was that because you were so conscious of the last one being a big hit, and that you had to follow it up and it had to be good, you possibly maybe set even higher standards for yourself this time, to the point where you actually threw out a lot. And I'm just wondering, given that authors will slave for hours, days, weeks possibly over paragraphs and pages, how do you then throw part of your baby out? How hard or easy is it to do that?
I think they always say you should murder your darlings. That's the line that they use. If you're particularly proud of something that you've written,
that's the bit to kill.
That's the bit that's going to stand out in the book and not Like my idea is that people should almost forget their reading. They should be so caught up in the story that it should almost be happening in front of their eyes. So if they read a bit and they're thinking, this is very fine writing, I actually haven't done my job properly. They should be just enthralled.
Transported by the story.
But you sweated blood over and burnished this prose, and it's taken weeks.
But it's like great service. You don't notice it. Great writing. You're just carried along by the story.
That's right. And I used to be an editor, and I know the value of cutting out things.
I was about to say, I think you having been an editor gives you a great skill, because it's very difficult for writers to murder their darlings. Because, you know, you've slaved over a chapter or a notion or an idea or a paragraph. You just want to keep on honing it. You don't want to kill it. So I think that does help you an awful lot in feeling confident in slashing and burning.
You're never objective about your own stuff, even if you really try to be. So I have to, you know, I have a brilliant editor. She's really helpful. She has thrown out whole chapters before, and I've kind of thought, why, I love that chapter. But she's, generally speaking, she's absolutely right.
Have you ever fought the toss for a chapter or just gone, no, I accept?
I usually try and argue it out. I always lose.
Right, The Kill. This is Maeve Kerrigan book number 5.
It is, yeah.
Okay, and so set it up for us.
So The Kill, it begins with a police officer being found. He's been shot dead in his car in Richmond Park, which is about the same size as the Phoenix Park. So it's like, you know, fairly substantial. Nobody has seen it happen, but he's been shot with a sniper's rifle. And there's something very odd about it. He's sitting in the passenger seat of his car, so he's not where they would expect him to be. He had no reason to be there. He was on his way home from work, and suddenly he's taken a detour this way. And gradually it becomes clear as the book goes on that there are other police officers being killed. There are other police officers who are in the firing line. And Maeve Kerrigan, who's my main character, and her team are trying to work out what's going on. What is this? Is this one individual? Is this a group of people who have a grudge against the police? Are these random? Are they actually not random at all? How these crimes are happening and these police officers are dying?
So is it a lone nutcase, or is it a conspiracy? Or
all that. And because I was really interested in the whole, I mean, it's kind of relevant now with the water charges disputing, I was really interested in the idea that we have kind of a contract with society, like we behave ourselves and the police keep us in line, basically, if we're tempted not to. And I was living in London during the London riots.
Okay.
And so that kind of fed into the book, this idea that when the police aren't doing their job, what actually happens? And in this book, the police can't do what they're supposed to do, because they're basically, they are the targets.
Yeah.
So they can't do the patrols that they should be doing. And that, like, anarchy suddenly comes into it.
Oh,
she's a dark woman. You really are. Still waters run deep. Jane Casey, The Kill, available now, and good luck for next week.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be nominated.
It's a hotly contested category. Everyone in it is deserving.
And you know, they're lovely as well.
Yeah.
I know every single one of the other authors. It's a very close-knit group, the Irish crime writers, and they're so lovely.
There's no bitching. They're all incredibly supportive of each other. It's very dull.
I'll murder them in the next
book.
Good
one, yeah. Thanks, Jen. See you next week.
Now, this month's book club choice is The Woman Who Stole My Life by Marion Keyes, speaking of lovely authors. If you would like to enter a review, simply send it in to us by Friday, November the 21st, and you can email them to irelandm@tv3.ie. You can also post them to Bord Gáis Energy Book Club, TV3 Westgate Business Park, Ballymount, Dublin 24.
Lose yourself in a good book. The Bord Gáis Energy Book Club.